I don't know how to follow a skin sheep. Although I saw plenty of them in Jordan as a Peace Corps volunteer. So, as a teacher, and I've been a teacher for more than 10 years now, as a teacher I know that the difference that you make, most of it you'll never see. And sometimes even when you see it right there in front of you, you won't understand what it is that you're looking at. And I think that Kauthar is the perfect example of what that's like. So Kauthar was in the 10th grade on this windswept hilltop little village in Jordan. It's 2004. This is the first class I have ever been solely responsible for, the 10th grade English class. And I walk in the first day and it's immediately obvious that there are two kinds of kids in this classroom. And to my left are 2 rows of girls in neatly pressed green uniforms. They're perched on the edge of their seat. They're waving their hands in the air. You missed, you missed, you missed, you missed, you missed. They all want to answer the questions. They all have the right answers already written in their books. They know, these girls, that they're going to pass their Tajiki, their A-level exams. They're going to get into university. They're going to have a career. They're going to have their pick of husbands. They're going to have a good life. They're a joy to teach. They soak up knowledge. On the other side of the room, I recognize these kids. In my high school in Pennsylvania, we called them the treads. They were treading water until high school was over. Their clothes are secondhand. Their uniforms are a little bit scrunchy. They're slouched in their seats. They talk to each other. They don't make eye contact with me. And in the front row, the tallest of all the girls, big shoulders, big hands, already rough from washing dishes, doing laundry, and scrubbing floors for her mother and at least 5 younger siblings. Her name is Kauthar. She's the ringleader. She sits in the front row, but she sits with her back to me. Unless she's making fun of my Arabic or making fun of my clothes or whatever else she thinks is going to get her girls to laugh. And these girls are a nightmare. They know they're going to fail their Tajiki exams. They know they're not going to university. They know they're having a baby a year for the rest of their lives. They're not interested in learning anything. They're in school to socialize. And they just make my life hell. And I keep reminding myself of something that one of the other volunteers says. She's a 20-year veteran of the Florida Public Schools, and she keeps reminding us, you know, every student has a right to fail. You don't give up on them, but every student has a right to fail. And some of them are exercising that right vigorously. And that was Kauthar. And one day I come walking out of the 10th grade, and there's this woman standing in the hallway. Tall, broad-shouldered, big hands. She says, "I'm Kauthar's mother." How is she? Does she behave in class? And, you know, I kind of feel bad for Kauthar. And I don't want to throw her under the bus. So I kind of hem and haw, but she can see it on my face, her mother. And she says, "You know what you need, Miss Mariah? What you need is a big stick. You hit her with a big stick and she'll behave." And before I can, come up with a response to this, then she says the thing that really breaks my heart. And she says, "You know, Miss Mariah, I know that learning English is important for my daughters. And I don't know how to help them when I can't even read in Arabic." And Mother said this to me many more times, and I never really had an answer. But I really felt for these girls and for their mothers. So, every morning at school, before school started, all the girls lined up by class, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, on the playground, up through the 13th grade. And And so every girl in the whole village lined up on the playground, and they do a couple of resentful jumping jacks, and they sing the national anthem, and they recite the Fatiha, which is like the Muslim Lord's Prayer, and then there's some announcements. And the teachers and the headmistress, they lead this from a little stage at the front of the playground. And one morning, the headmistress starts calling up 10th graders onto the little stage in front of the whole school. And she calls up Kauthar, and she calls up another one, and she calls up another one, and she calls up another one. It's all the treads, all the bad kids from my 10th grade class. And she says, now, remember, every girl in the village is watching, right? She says, I heard that you're not very respectful of Miss Mariah, and you don't behave well in her class. And you know, that is not how we treat teachers in our culture, and that is not how we treat guests in Islam. And then, she had this long length of thin black PVC pipe in her hand, and she made each one turn around, and she hit each one twice on the backside. Not hard, not to hurt, just to humiliate them in front of the entire community. And, you know, they were better for a couple of days, but, you know, it didn't last. So in my second year of Peace Corps, the headmistress decides I will teach first, second, and third grade. And I'm thinking, well, you know, at least I'm twice as tall as my students. Because in America, I'm not a very tall person, but in Jordan, I was always the tallest person in the room. And so, I really like the first, second, and third graders, and they're much easier to sort of keep engaged in class. One day, at the end of class, into my third grade classroom walks Kauthar. And she puts her big hands on one of my third graders' shoulders, and she says, "This is my little sister. Is she good in English?" And to be honest, like, the only reason I know she was in my class is because she was Kauthar's sister. She's completely unremarkable, totally dead average. So I don't have much to say. I say, you know, she does pretty well. And Kauthar says, "If she doesn't behave, you remember Miss Mariah, you hit her with a big stick." And then to her sister she says, "You listen to Miss Mariah and you pay attention. This is important." And she comes back maybe half a dozen times to my third grade classroom over the next year. And I don't understand why. She's my worst student. She made my first year a living hell. And she keeps coming back to my classroom and she keeps telling her little sister, "You behave, you pay attention to Miss Mariah, this is important." And I don't know if she regretted the way she treated me or the way she behaved in the third grade that led to her knowing that she wasn't going to go to university. I don't know why. She kept coming back to my classroom. So, Peace Corps ends. I go back to America. I get my master's degree. It's 2008. There's no jobs to be had in America. I get a scholarship to go back to Jordan and study more Arabic. I go back to Jordan. I get a job there. I'm teaching English to adults in a community college, private community college. One day I am so miserably sick. I don't know if it's something I ate. I don't know if I'm starting my period. It doesn't matter. Either way, I can get the day off. Under Jordanian law, you can take the day off for your period. So, all I have to do is find the college doctor's office and get a note that says I'm too sick to work. So I go looking for the doctor's office, even though I hate the idea that I'm 26 years old and I need a doctor's note. I go looking for the doctor's office. I can't find it. I know it's in the basement somewhere. I have no idea where. So I stop and I ask a security guard for help. And I'm sick and I'm not thinking straight. And so just stop and I ask for help. And this security guard says to me, "Are you Miss Mariah?" And so I said yes. I mean, I was the only white girl in the college, so everybody knew who I was. And She says, Miss Mariah, don't you recognize me? And I look her over, just this sort of like dingy brown uniform and big shoulders, and I look at her face and I say, sick as a dog, I don't know, I guess you look familiar. And she says, Miss Mariah, it's Kautha. And I still don't know why she introduced herself to me. I still don't know why she didn't just answer my question. If I were Kautha, I wouldn't have introduced myself to me. But for some reason, she wanted me to see that she was there. And she kept coming back to my office over the course of the next year. She brought her little sister to the office to see me one day. And all I can think is, when I was back in that village, I used to, you hate to give up on a kid. And I used to look at the half of my class that I was pretty sure were not going to get into university, and I used to think, if I can teach these girls that they can learn just something, then maybe they'll grow up to be mothers who teach their daughters that they can learn anything. And maybe, by that measure, I succeeded with Kautha.
Thank you.